Have you ever been promised something and it just fell through? Maybe it was a job offer that got pulled back, a relationship that didn't last, a dream that seemed so close, and then the door just slammed shut. We live in a world of broken commitments, and I'll try my best. We've all felt that sting of a failed promise. It makes us cynical, right? It makes us want to guard our hearts, to not get our hopes up. But what if I told you there is a promise maker who is fundamentally unable to break his word? What if there is a source of promises with a 100% fulfillment rate, not because of circumstances, but because of the unchanging character of the one who speaks them? Today, we're going back to the very beginning, not just to a simple story, but to the foundational truths in the book of Genesis that reveal why God's promises never, ever fail. This isn't just about ancient history. It's about the solid rock you can build your life, your hope, and your future upon. Let's look at the very first thing God does in the Bible. He speaks. Let there be light, and there was light. He speaks to the void, to the chaos, to nothingness. And worlds are born. Stars are hung. Life erupts. Here's the first Genesis truth. God's creative word is instantly effective. What he says happens. There is no gap between his declaration and its reality. The promise isn't just a hope. It is the engine of creation itself. When the source of your promise holds all power in the universe, no external force can stop it. His power is the guarantee. But then, humanity enters the scene and we fail. Adam and Eve break the one boundary given. The perfect world is fractured. If this were a human contract, this would be the moment it gets ripped up. You broke the terms, the deal's off. But watch what God does. In the midst of pronouncing consequences, he makes the first gospel promise in Genesis 3:15. He promises a future redeemer who will crush the serpent's head. Even when we fail, his promise-making continues. Fast forward to Abraham. God calls one man and makes an outrageous promise. I will make you a great nation, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Abraham then proceeds to make mistake after mistake lying, taking matters into his own hands with Hagar. Yet, God doesn't take back the promise. He repeats it, expands it, and seals it with a covenant. The promise doesn't depend on Abraham's perfection. It depends on God's faithfulness. In our world, we sign contracts. In God's world, he makes covenants. A contract is an exchange of goods. A covenant is a binding of selves. It's relational and unbreakable. After the flood, God makes a covenant with Noah and all creation, putting a rainbow in the sky as a sign. He says, I remember my covenant. The sign wasn't for God to remember. It was for us to remember he remembers. With Abraham, in a profound ancient ritual, God alone passes between the split animals. Symbolically, God was saying, may I be torn apart if I break this promise. The fulfillment rests entirely on him. His integrity is on the line. He stakes his own name on his promises. This is often the hardest part for us. We want the promise now. God works through process. Abraham and Sarah waited 25 years for Isaac. Joseph had a dream of his family bowing to him, and then was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison for 13 years. It looked like the promise was dead, but every pit, every prison, was a strategic step in God's plan to not only fulfill the dream, but to save nations. In Genesis 52:20, Joseph declares the breathtaking truth. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. God's delay is not denial. It is often a divine incubation, preparing both the promise and the recipient, so that when it arrives, its purpose is magnified and our character can sustain it. So what does this mean for you today? You may be in a season of waiting, of confusion, or of failure. You may feel like the promise you thought God gave you is buried in some Egyptian prison. Remember the Genesis truths.